Most men think intimacy begins with passion, with fireworks, with some bold move that sweeps a woman off her feet. But what if I told you that the strongest desire a woman feels doesn't start with heat at all? It starts with safety. It starts with trust. It starts with the smallest, quietest touches that most men completely overlook. And while everyone else is trying harder, moving faster, and saying more, the man who understands these subtle emotional triggers can create connection without chasing, without forcing, without pretending. Because there are certain places on her body that speak directly to her nervous system, places that awaken both her heart and her senses at the same time. And once you learn how to approach them with calm confidence, intimacy stops feeling complicated and starts feeling natural, effortless, almost inevitable. So today you're about to discover the few simple gestures that separate forgettable encounters from deep emotional and physical closeness. The difference between being liked and being truly desired. Most men underestimate the power of a simple forehead kiss because they judge intimacy through a purely physical lens, assuming that stronger reactions come from more overtly sexual contact. But for many women, the emotional brain always activates first, and the forehead sits at the center of that emotional map like a quiet doorway into trust, safety, and attachment. So when you gently place your lips there, you are not just touching skin. You are speaking directly to her nervous system in a language older than attraction itself, a language associated with protection, comfort, and care. The same signals the brain recognizes from childhood when someone safe held her close, which is why the gesture feels grounding rather than stimulating, calming rather than demanding. And that calm is precisely what allows deeper desire to form, because the female mind does not open under pressure. It opens under security, and when she senses that you are not trying to rush her body or extract something from the moment, her guard lowers naturally without resistance. Her breathing slows, her shoulders soften, and she stops monitoring you for hidden intentions. And this shift is biological as much as psychological, as the brain begins to release oxytocin, the bonding hormone responsible for closeness and attachment, which increases feelings of warmth and connection and makes your presence feel safe rather than threatening. So instead of thinking about how she looks or how she is being perceived, she begins to feel, and feeling is the gateway to intimacy. And what makes the forehead kiss especially powerful is that it communicates leadership without dominance, affection without neediness, strength without aggression. It says you are steady and composed enough to slow down, which subconsciously signals emotional maturity. And emotional maturity is deeply attractive because it implies reliability and protection, qualities that create lasting bonds. And when you lean in calmly, place a soft kiss there, and linger for a brief second without grabbing or escalating, you create a pause in time that feels intentional, almost sacred. And in that pause, she senses that you are fully present with her rather than chasing an outcome. And presence is rare, so rare that it becomes magnetic. And the contrast between what she expects and what you actually do surprises her in the best way. Because many men rush toward lips or push for intensity too quickly, which triggers evaluation and sometimes resistance. But the forehead bypasses all of that. It feels pure and sincere, which makes her heart respond before her mind can analyze. And that emotional response builds anticipation beneath the surface. Because when a woman feels cherished instead of pursued, she begins to move closer on her own. She becomes curious, receptive, willing, and that willingness is far more powerful than any forced progression. And the beauty of this gesture is that it transforms the dynamic completely. You are no longer trying to convince her to be intimate. You are creating an atmosphere where intimacy becomes the natural next step, where she chooses you rather than reacts to you, where desire grows quietly like warmth spreading through the body. And as you hold her gently and let your lips rest against her forehead, you communicate through action that she is valued, respected, and emotionally safe. And a woman feels emotionally safe. Her body follows. Her touch lingers longer. Her eyes soften. Her distance closes almost unconsciously. And what began as the simplest, most understated gesture slowly becomes the foundation for something deeper. Something that doesn't feel rushed or performative but natural and inevitable, like two people settling into the same rhythm without words, without pressure, just a quiet connection building in the space between heartbeats and breath, and the subtle awareness that being this close feels right and unguarded and warm and steady, like staying there a little longer without needing anything else at all. The side of her neck is one of the most overlooked yet psychologically powerful places you can create connection. Because unlike gestures that feel overtly sexual or rushed, this area sits at the crossroads of vulnerability, trust, and sensory sensitivity, which means the reaction it produces is not just physical but deeply emotional. And when you understand why, you stop treating touch like a technique and start treating it like communication, because the neck is biologically sensitive due to the concentration of nerve endings and its closeness to the pulse. So even the lightest contact sends immediate signals through the nervous system, signals that the brain interprets as intimate and personal rather than casual, and that intimacy matters because a woman does not open herself to someone she does not trust near vulnerable areas. So when you approach slowly and gently, you are silently telling her that you are aware of her boundaries and respectful of them, which lowers her defenses instead of triggering them. And lowering defenses is the true gateway to desire. Since desire cannot grow in a state of tension or self-protection, it grows in relaxation, and the side of the neck has this unique ability to create that relaxation while simultaneously building anticipation, which is a rare combination, because anticipation is where attraction lives. Not in speed or urgency, but in the quiet space between moments. And when you brush your fingers lightly along her hair, move close without suddenness, and let your lips rest softly against her neck for just a second longer than expected, you create a slow build-up that her mind starts to follow. And the mind is the strongest driver of physical response, far stronger than any aggressive move. So instead of overwhelming her senses, you invite her into the experience, and that invitation feels safe and intentional. And intentionality is incredibly attractive because it shows confidence and control, not desperation. And desperation is what kills chemistry faster than anything else. Because when a man rushes, grabs, or forces intensity, her body instinctively tightens. But when he slows down and moves with calm certainty, her body mirrors that calm. Her breathing deepens, her posture softens, and she becomes more receptive without even realizing it. And what makes the neck especially powerful is the proximity to her heartbeat. Because when you are close enough to feel her pulse, there is an unspoken closeness that feels almost private, like you are sharing the same space and rhythm, and this closeness creates a sense of emotional merging that words cannot replicate. And that is why a gentle kiss or warm breath against her neck often sends a shiver through her body, not because it is explicit, but because it feels personal, like you are tuned into her rather than performing for her. And that distinction changes everything because women are highly attuned to intention. They can sense whether you are trying to take or trying to connect. And when the gesture comes from connection, it feels meaningful instead of mechanical. And meaning is what transforms a simple touch into something unforgettable. So the key is not pressure or repetition, but patience, allowing the moment to unfold naturally, letting your presence linger, giving her space to lean toward you rather than pulling her toward you. And when she leans in on her own, that is when real intimacy begins, because it becomes her choice, not your push. And choice creates desire, and desire that grows voluntarily is always stronger, deeper, and longer lasting than anything forced. So the side of her neck becomes less about physical stimulation and more about emotional invitation, a quiet signal that says you are steady, attentive, and safe to be close to. And when she feels that safety, her body responds with warmth, openness, and a subtle pull toward you that feels effortless, natural, and deeply connected rather than rushed or artificial. The third place most men overlook, yet one that carries surprising emotional depth, is her hands. And at first, this might seem almost too simple to matter because hands do not carry the obvious sensuality people associate with passion. But that is exactly why they are so powerful. Because intimacy, for many women, does not begin with heat. It begins with trust. And the hands are psychologically tied to trust more than almost any other part of the body, since we use them to reach out, to protect ourselves, to hold, to comfort, to connect. And when you take a woman's hand gently and treat it with care rather than urgency, you communicate something that goes far beyond attraction. You communicate respect, and respect is the foundation that allows real desire to grow without resistance. So instead of grabbing or pulling her close in a way that feels demanding, you slow the moment down. You let your fingers intertwine naturally with hers. You feel the warmth of her skin, and you allow that contact to linger. And this lingering matters because it signals that you are not rushing toward an outcome. You are present with her. And presence creates emotional safety. And emotional safety is what allows her body to relax. And relaxation is where openness begins. Because when she feels safe, she is not bracing herself or analyzing your intentions. She is simply feeling the connection. And that shift from thinking to feeling is where intimacy actually forms. And when you gently lift her hand and brush your lips across her knuckles or the back of her hand, the gesture feels tender rather than sexual. But tenderness has a deeper effect than overt passion, because it surprises her nervous system in a positive way. It feels old-fashioned, thoughtful, almost protective, and those qualities trigger a sense of being valued rather than pursued. And being valued is incredibly attractive because it tells her she is more than just a physical body to you. She is someone you genuinely care about. And when a woman feels emotionally cherished like that, her guard lowers without effort. And when the guard lowers, her natural desire has space to emerge on its own. And what makes the hands especially intimate is that they are constantly in her line of awareness. So every small movement feels magnified. Every gentle squeeze, every slow stroke of your thumb across her skin sends subtle signals through her nervous system that you are attentive and calm. And calm confidence is magnetic, because it shows that you are comfortable leading the moment without forcing it. And that balance between strength and gentleness creates a feeling of stability that many women instinctively crave. So instead of dramatic gestures, the connection builds quietly through these small touches, through the warmth of her hand resting in yours, through the rhythm of walking side by side, through the silent language of fingers tightening slightly when she feels closer to you. And these micro moments accumulate, layering comfort over comfort until the space between you feels natural rather than awkward. And once that comfort exists, deeper forms of affection feel effortless instead of pressured, because you are no longer strangers trying to create chemistry. You are two people already connected through something simple and sincere, and that sincerity is what makes the experience memorable. Because grand moves can be forgotten, but gentle, meaningful contact lingers in the mind, creating an emotional imprint that says, "This person makes me feel safe, seen, and wanted without words." And when she associates you with that feeling, intimacy stops being something you chase and becomes something that grows quietly on its own, expanding from the smallest touch of her hand into a deeper closeness that feels steady, warm, and completely unforced. The fourth place that quietly deepens both emotional and physical intimacy is the space just behind her ear, an area so subtle that most men either ignore it completely or approach it with far too much intensity, not realizing that its power lies in softness rather than force. Because this small region sits close to some of the most sensitive nerve pathways in the body and directly near the sounds of your breath and voice, which means any gentle contact there becomes not just touch, but an entire sensory experience, blending warmth, closeness, scent, and sound all at once. And when multiple senses are activated together, the brain interprets the moment as deeply personal and memorable rather than casual. And that personal quality is what transforms a simple gesture into something emotionally charged. Because for many women, intimacy begins with feeling enveloped by someone's presence rather than overwhelmed by someone's aggression. So when you move slowly into her space, brush her hair aside with calm intention, and let your lips rest lightly near that area without rushing or pressing too hard, you create a quiet tension that feels safe but electric at the same time. And that balance between safety and excitement is exactly where attraction thrives. Because if she feels only safety, there is comfort but no spark. And if she feels only intensity, there is spark but no trust. But when both exist together, her body naturally opens without resistance. And what makes the area behind the ear especially powerful is its connection to vulnerability, since allowing someone that close requires unconscious trust. And trust is the real foundation of desire. So when she allows you into that space, even briefly, it signals that she feels secure with you. And when you respond with gentleness rather than urgency, you reinforce that security instead of breaking it. And this reinforcement matters because the female nervous system is highly attuned to threat detection, meaning that sudden or forceful movements can instantly shut down attraction, but slow, deliberate movements calm the system and create receptivity. And once she feels receptive, even the softest whisper of breath or faint brush of lips can send a shiver through her entire body, not because the action is explicit, but because it feels intimate and close. Like you are sharing a private moment that belongs only to the two of you. And that exclusivity makes the experience emotionally significant. And emotional significance is what turns fleeting attraction into lasting connection. So instead of thinking about doing more, you focus on doing less with greater awareness, letting your presence linger near her ear, perhaps speaking softly or saying her name in a low, steady tone, because sound itself becomes part of the intimacy. And the combination of your voice and gentle touch creates anticipation that builds naturally without pressure. And anticipation is far more powerful than immediacy, since the mind begins to imagine what might come next, and imagination intensifies sensation far beyond anything rushed or forced. And in those quiet seconds, she becomes hyper-aware of you, of your closeness, of the warmth of your breath against her skin, and that awareness draws her toward you rather than away, creating a magnetic pull that feels effortless instead of calculated. And the beauty of this gesture is that it communicates confidence without dominance, affection without neediness, and closeness without demand, which allows her to relax into the moment and respond freely. And when a woman feels free rather than pressured, her desire becomes authentic and spontaneous, rising gently from within rather than being pushed from outside, creating a connection that feels natural, steady, and deeply intimate, like two people sharing the same breath in the same quiet space without needing anything more. The fifth place that quietly strengthens emotional and physical intimacy is the small of her back, that gentle curve just above the waist, where your hand naturally rests when you guide her through a doorway or draw her a little closer while walking. And what makes this area so powerful is not overt sensitivity alone, but what it represents psychologically, because the lower back is tied to guidance, protection, and subtle leadership, which means when you touch her there with calm assurance, it communicates stability rather than desire. And stability is one of the strongest emotional triggers of attraction for many women, since it signals that you are grounded, confident, and in control of yourself, not scrambling for validation or rushing for a reaction. And that quiet confidence immediately lowers her defenses, because instead of feeling pursued, she feels supported, and support creates trust. And trust is the soil where real intimacy grows. So when your palm rests lightly against the small of her back, not gripping, not pulling, just steady and warm, her nervous system registers the contact as safe and protective, almost instinctively. And this instinct matters because the human brain evolved to associate a steady hand at the back with guidance and security, like someone leading you through a crowded room or shielding you from uncertainty. And when she senses that steadiness, her body relaxes without conscious thought. Her posture softens, and she unconsciously leans into you rather than away. And that leaning is important because attraction that flows toward you is always stronger than attraction you try to force. And what makes this gesture especially intimate is that it feels natural and unforced, not theatrical or performative, which means it bypasses her analytical mind and speaks directly to her emotional brain. And the emotional brain responds much faster than logic ever could. So instead of questioning your motives, she simply feels closer, warmer, more connected. And in that state, even the smallest movement becomes amplified. The gentle pressure of your fingers, the slow slide of your hand as you guide her forward, the subtle pull that brings her just an inch nearer to your body. And those inches matter because intimacy often grows in small distances, closing rather than dramatic gestures. And when she feels your hand there consistently, calmly, she begins to associate your touch with reassurance. And reassurance creates comfort. And comfort is what allows desire to surface naturally without tension. And it also communicates leadership without dominance, which is a rare balance that many women find deeply attractive because dominance feels forceful and uncomfortable, while leadership feels safe and composed. And when you guide her with a light touch at her back, you are saying without words that you know where you are going and she can relax. And that relaxation frees her from the need to stay guarded or self-conscious, allowing her to be more playful, more affectionate, more open. And this openness makes every later moment of closeness feel organic rather than rushed. And what is fascinating is that such a simple, almost innocent touch can spark both emotional warmth and physical awareness at the same time, because the body recognizes closeness while the mind recognizes care. And when both signals align, intimacy deepens quickly and quietly, building like heat under the surface instead of exploding all at once. And this slow build is what creates lasting chemistry rather than fleeting excitement. So instead of chasing intensity, you focus on steadiness, letting your hand rest there with quiet confidence, letting her feel that you are present and attentive. And in that calm presence, she naturally moves closer, matching your rhythm, feeling connected, safe, and subtly drawn into the space between you without resistance or hesitation. The sixth place that deepens both emotional and physical intimacy, yet is rarely understood for its true psychological power, is her hair and scalp. Because while most people think of touch only in terms of obvious romantic zones, the head carries an extraordinary number of nerve endings and is directly connected to comfort, relaxation, and trust. Which is why something as simple as gently running your fingers through her hair or softly brushing strands away from her face can create a surprisingly strong emotional response. And the reason this works is not purely physical, but deeply neurological, since slow, rhythmic strokes along the scalp activate calming pathways in the nervous system, lowering stress hormones and increasing feelings of safety and closeness, similar to how a reassuring touch can soothe someone after a long day. And when stress drops, the body becomes more open to connection, because tension is the enemy of intimacy and relaxation is its gateway. So when you move your hand slowly through her hair with patience rather than urgency, you are not trying to stimulate her, you are helping her feel at ease. And that ease makes your presence feel comforting instead of demanding. And comfort is one of the strongest foundations of attraction, even stronger than excitement, because excitement fades quickly, but comfort lingers and creates attachment. And what makes this gesture particularly intimate is its tenderness. Since touching someone's hair is inherently personal and requires a level of trust that strangers do not share. So when she allows you into that space, it means she already feels safe enough to let you close. And when you respond with gentleness, you reinforce that trust rather than breaking it. And this reinforcement deepens emotional bonding without either of you needing to say anything. And silence during these moments often feels heavier and more meaningful than words, because the connection is being communicated through sensation instead of conversation. And when you slowly tuck her hair behind her ear, trace your fingers lightly along her scalp, or cradle the back of her head while holding her close. You create a feeling of being cared for rather than pursued, and being cared for allows her to drop the subtle defenses she may not even realize she carries. And once those defenses soften, her body naturally moves closer. Her breathing synchronizes with yours, and the distance between you shrinks without effort. And that effortless closeness is the essence of true intimacy, because it feels chosen rather than pushed. And there is also a powerful emotional association at play, since gentle hair touch often connects to memories of affection and safety from earlier life experiences, which means your touch subconsciously triggers warmth and nostalgia, emotions that strengthen attachment and make her feel bonded to you on a deeper level. And this bonding effect is far more enduring than any dramatic or aggressive gesture, because it speaks to the heart instead of just the senses. So instead of trying to impress her with intensity, you focus on calm, steady contact, letting your fingers move slowly, letting the moment stretch, letting her melt into your presence. And in that quiet space, she begins to associate you with peace, security, and closeness. And when a woman feels peaceful with you, desire no longer feels forced or complicated. It grows naturally from the comfort of simply being near you. From the warmth of your hand resting gently in her hair, from the unspoken message that she is safe, valued, and completely at ease right there with you. So when you step back and look at everything we've talked about, you start to see a pattern that most men completely miss. Because intimacy is not created by intensity. It is created by intention. It is not built through rushing, grabbing, or trying to impress. It is built through calm presence, emotional awareness, and small, meaningful touches that make a woman feel safe before she ever feels stimulated. And the difference between men who constantly chase attraction and the men women naturally move toward is simple. The first group tries to take. The second group knows how to connect, and connection always wins. Because when a woman feels emotionally secure, her body follows effortlessly, not out of pressure, not out of obligation, but out of genuine desire. And that desire is deeper, warmer, and far more lasting than anything you could force. So whether it is a gentle kiss on her forehead that signals protection, a slow touch along her neck that builds anticipation, the tenderness of holding and kissing her hands, the quiet closeness behind her ear, the steady guidance of your hand at the small of her back, or the soothing comfort of your fingers moving through her hair, each gesture is really saying the same thing without words. You are safe with me. You can relax with me. You can trust me. And trust is the foundation of all intimacy. Because without trust, the body resists. But with trust, the body opens naturally. And when you understand this, everything changes. You stop performing and start being present. You stop chasing reactions and start creating feelings. You stop trying to move fast, and instead you slow down. And slowing down is what makes her lean in closer, because calm confidence is magnetic and emotional steadiness is rare. And when she senses that steadiness in you, she doesn't feel like she has to protect herself. She feels free to soften, free to connect, free to desire. And that freedom is what turns simple moments into powerful ones. What turns light touches into unforgettable memories, and what turns attraction into real emotional and physical intimacy. So remember, it's never about doing more. It's about doing less with greater awareness, letting every touch carry meaning, letting every moment breathe, and allowing intimacy to grow naturally, quietly, and effortlessly between the two of you.